start making some videos that kind of entailed a little bit of what I think information I need to get out to a group whole on a regular basis. So consider this kind of a video cast of sorts that'll eventually lead into hopefully the podcast specifically for Fusboxe that will help me to communicate with the students and the practitioners of, of the Fuseboxe system and kind of go over some of the mental things that I feel that need to be addressed in order to reach that high level of athlete that we're all hoping to, at least on some level, become or accomplish, either for ourselves or for our children. So today I'm shooting out of Honolulu. I'm hoping to get a little bit of a shot tomorrow out of Honolulu as well in a different location. But today I'm just going to be shooting from my hotel room in Honolulu, right in front of the beach, because it's pretty noisy down there, pretty busy, lots of kids screaming and yelling. And even the beaches that are more for locals, right up the road that I like to go to, are really busy. And I don't want to get anybody's way, and I don't want to get in my way. So today I'm going to address this right here. And so hope you guys are doing well where you are. And let's get into this. So first of all, I've been putting some serious thought into what I see happen on a regular basis when athletes, and this is over the last 23 or so years, when athletes get involved in really committing to a competition. Now, this isn't a volleyball thing, guys. This is a for real kind of thing. Fighting is a significant risk for your health if it's done improperly, as you can imagine. So what I see is one of the most basic things that needs to take place is individuals need to commit on an extreme level to the combat itself, to the training. There is so much more than just showing up for a competition. And I know there's a lot of things in lives that we can do that you just show up the day of and compete. And this isn't typically for most people one of them. Now, for some of you that have known me for a while, you'll know that I will periodically step into a competition out of nowhere, but understand I've got a great deal of skill built up in this one area that works for me very well. My strategies wouldn't necessarily work for everybody the same way, but they work for me very well. So getting to know yourself inside the martial arts is a really important thing. And what I mean by that is when I'm asked by individuals, what separates a fighter from a non-fighter, for there's obviously a skill set and things like that involved, but really it's the knowledge of yourself. How well do you know yourself? If you're the first guy to quit, if you're the first guy to leave, if you're the last guy to show, this is all knowledge of the self. Now I'm paying attention to this with athletes. I know that Lauren's paying attention to this. Other coaches in the facility are paying attention to this. We're looking for as much sacrifice as we're willing to put into you. We're looking for at least an equal amount of commitment back in that. So it's really important that you understand yourself in a realistic view, not in a distorted view. A distorted view is I've trained a few times, I'm ready for competition. As long as your opponent has trained a few times and then thought he was ready for competition, we're on an equal and level playing field. But if the other individual is completely dedicated, the odds start to stack up on the other side. All right, and we don't want to stack odds against us. So here's where I'm going when I say to people that knowing yourself, I know what hurts me, and the average guy maybe doesn't know what hurts him as much as he'd like to think. You've all seen the meme that the average man thinks he can fight 3,000% better than he actually can. There's so much truth in that I want to address that portion of the conversation. We can all fight, we can all dance, we can all sing, but we can't all fight, dance, or sing very well. That is a lifetime commitment that creates that type of capability, or you just got gifted genetically. Now, you can be gifted genetically and have all this capability that works for you, but if other people commit hardcore with that genetic capability and then they fight you, they again, the odds are stacked against us. So we're really looking for people to commit 100% into this venture for the small window of opportunity that exists, that you can actually be a fighter. Knowing what hurts you, to dive in a little deeper on that topic, if I'm sure the world's changed a lot since I was young, but I've witnessed dogs jump out of pickup trucks, for example, on the highway to get a bird or something they see off to the side of the road. The dog is not aware of what hurts him, though he is a fierce competitor emotionally. The What we don't want to be, got ambulances coming in. It would make sense with the condition of some of the tourists here that this would be a thing. Um, that dog jumps out of the back of the pickup, doesn't realize what's going to happen. He only has one goal in mind. He's going to go fight that thing or smell that thing. And so he jumps out of the truck and kills himself in the process to go get. I'm not interested in creating that guy. So if I see people like, I don't want to train, but I want to fight, that's kind of how I see you. And then you have people that are like out in the world that think everything hurts them, which isn't the case. Everything could cause a little bit of pain, but not everything damages you. People are much tougher and also much more fragile than they believe. So when I see the difference between fighters and not fighters is fighters, we understand what hurts us and we will avoid those things that hurt us. And that's why you see decent head movement, because we know that that hurts us. Other people think that they're so tough that they don't need to develop head movement, which is great for me if I'm fighting them, great for you if you're fighting them, not good for them if they're being fought. So skill development is important because skill development comes around understanding of the reality of combat sports. So right now, I really want to address and really pin down that the commitment necessary for you to become a formidable fighter is a plethora of skills that need to be gained on top of a conditioning standard that I expect you to have. And if you don't have it, you're walking out into the world with me as a coach expecting me to say, I approve of what has occurred here, and then my coaching reputation goes down the tubes because I'm producing people at their own comfortable desire of training. And as you can imagine, that's a real problem as a professional in the martial arts. The standard that we have at Fusboxe is been very clear for decades. We have an expectation of X amounts of combat fights before we jump into MMA. And that's why you're not seeing a ton of people in MMA out of our gym right now, is people are having a hard time meeting those standards. So Sambo is a great way to get some of those standards cut out of the way. You get a bunch of Sambo fights underneath you, then I am absolutely comfortable with you jumping into the MMA world. But you have to know what you're capable of. And I have to know what you're capable of. And so this is kind of a dance that we have to do together to make sure that each individual is going to be able to perform at a level that is acceptable for the Fuseboxe culture. And it's important to me as a person in the age that I am that I don't leave behind a lineage of kind of slop training and slop entries into low-level mixed martial arts fights. I am really interested in producing those high-level guys that are wanting to go to the UFC, that are wanting to go to 1FC, that are wanting to make a real name for themselves while they have this little slot. And it even gets a little more complicated than that because I'm protective of the individuals. So we have Ryu, Kaiden, Jaden, kids like that were in the facility that I told, I want you to go out into the world and kind of find yourself first. The Japanese called this shiryoshi. I want you to go out and gain your skills, and then if you still want to fight, I'll be here, God willing, and I will help you move on to that next stage. But we can't move on to that next stage until we know you're absolutely ready. And I'm not willing to sacrifice young men and women prior to having their life set up in the fight game. I just have not seen a lot of examples of people entering real early and a good outcome come from that long term for an individual's life. There may be some disagreements with me on that, and I'm not going to force you to go out into the world, but I'm going to suggest you do. Now, if you're already to the age to where you're have kind of gone out and you've established stuff, you've got a family, you're ready to go, you have the network of people set up, then I'm 100% interested in getting you into these fights, provided you can find the time to show up and do the proper training. If you don't do the proper training, we got ourselves an issue again. It's real easy to get to these lower level fights and get over our head in the higher level fights where you just don't end up making it. So I know that there's that fighter mentality. It's like they kind of just have that fuck it to them where they're like, fuck it, just jump into it. And I can appreciate that kind of courage, but it's very similar to the dog that we just talked about earlier. And I don't want to produce that. So I am absolutely looking for guys that are capable of, and women that are capable of committing wholeheartedly to the program and to the protocol to create a very predictable outcome with their bodies and their mentalities. So that being said, that is a little bit of the hang up on my enthusiasm of putting people directly into these fights that they want to jump into without the proper preparation. It's not you. It really isn't you. It's totally me. I have an expectation. I know what works and I know what doesn't work. And since I've done both of these things, I'm really firm on the idea that you have to be prepared to get into these fights. I'm going to try to get a little balance on the sun here. So if you have questions and if you think that maybe I'm being too firm on you for what it's going to take to get into the fights, I'm telling you, I'm not being too firm on you. I'd have the same expectation for myself. And should I decide to compete again, there's going to be a protocol that I have to go through, which is the same as yours. And then there's going to be an auditing form session that I have to go through for a period of time to make sure that my strikes are accurate, to make sure that my hooks are clean, to make sure that my kicks are good, that my psoas is working, that my abdominal region is working, my shoulders are held together, neck health. All of these things are really important for that longevity in the life. We can all fight one and done. But this isn't, I'm not a bucket list answerer. So I'm not into bucket listing things. This is a legitimate system designed to help people make it to the top of their performance capabilities within a period of time. So if you're on the list, one of the things I don't want to hear from you once you take a fight, and this is super common, is I need to take some time off. It's super common for people to put their name up on that board, and then the next thing you know, I don't see them again until a week before it's time to compete. And I actually see people less in preparation for a combat match than I see them without doing preparation. So I think what may happen a little bit is people get really excited about just training in general, the martial arts. It becomes a social thing. And I love that. I don't judge that at all. I get it. Mountain biking got ruined for me when I started being a competitor in mountain biking. It was far less fun. But in order to be a competitor in mountain biking or in anything, you have to put a serious amount of commitment into this to make it work. So what I expect once a person signs their name on that board is for them to be a total pain in my ass and to be all over me trying to gather information on how to train properly. I'm going to write stuff on the board I expect you to do. It's pretty basic, it's pretty simple. It's just hard work. Things like the toe-to bars and the pull-ups and your push-ups, all this stuff needs to take place to make sure your body is held together so it can handle the rigors of training to get ready for a simple match. Sometimes we can get away with just doing a match or two here and there. That's not a problem. But that skill set needs to be built up. So your basic armbar drills, they need to be going on all the time, guys. Practicing your chokes. If you're not nailing chokes 100% of the time, you need to clean up why that isn't happening. Love to hear from you about that. But focus and direction on what you're trying to accomplish is the number one priority for me as a coach, is I need to see that you're focused and directed. If the first thing you need when you start a camp, we start an 8-week camp, and you need 3 weeks of personal time inside of that camp, we need to call a fight. You're not ready. That's not a good time. You need to be cleaned of any other obligations in the time that you're taking that fight, if at all possible. And if it's wildly impossible, I get it, but understand that's a very amateur approach to this. If we're trying to go professional, we need to approach it from day one as a professional. If you can't do that kind of stuff, a lot of teams will just strictly kick you directly out of the team because you're not able to compete. Special warfare programs, special forces programs, anything like that, fire departments programs. If you can't do it, you can't do it. That's cool, man. Off you go. Good to meet you. I have to run a business here, so I have to make concessions a little bit for people, but you shouldn't be making concessions for yourself. Believe me, if you were the one that was so genetically great from the beginning, we would have known about that by the time you're probably 9. So it's important that you understand that we are all works in progress, and we really, really have to step up to the plate to train properly, to be prepared to perform. And we're talking sometimes a 5 to 15% difference on hard training from our competitor. That 5 to 15% difference makes a big deal. And I know everybody has a slugger's chance, but we don't want to rely on that slugger's chance. That's kind of the last thing. That high risk, high reward approach is the last thing I want to do. So hopefully that clears up a little bit of my expectations of people in the combat forum, of what I expect from you as a gladiator to step into these rings and be formidable in a way that represents your team, you, and myself in such a way that we're not making clowns of ourselves for showing up to stuff ill prepared. I've watched too many teams do this. Those teams come and go. We've been here for 20 plus years making sure that this is done right. We don't want to start slacking now. That would be an absolute detriment to the program and to the representation of each one of you athletes. So that's what I have for today. This is Coach Sullivan talking to you from Honolulu. I'll try to shoot another video tomorrow and see if we can touch base on another topic while I'm out here, to kind of make it an interesting thing, to get a chance to see some of the stuff that I'm seeing out here, doing meditation and contemplation on where to go next with everything. Taking a break from the world that I've been in for a long time to come out here and see my son and make sure that he's doing good. I know these things need to happen for other people as well. Just don't pick them up right before you fight. That's my request. Don't pick up these trips right before you fight if you can help it. So that being said, guys, this is Coach Sullivan, and I hope to see you guys on the mat, committed, dedicated, and ready to go.